Nampa, Idaho is facing a housing challenge as it grapples with growth and the community. The city is walled in with limited land for development, and residents are pushing back against multifamily and high density housing. However, city planners say these types of housing are necessary to meet the needs of Nampa's growing population and to keep housing affordable. They're also working to infill vacant land in the city center with housing, which will reduce the need to spread out further into agricultural land. Residents' concerns about traffic and mixed housing types are understandable, but Rebus, Boise State professor of business and economics, says that they are often based on misconceptions about low-income housing. He argues that multifamily and high-density housing are essential for making housing more affordable for everyone. Rebus also says that Nampa should see Boise's housing crisis as an opportunity to increase tax revenue by creating the housing that people need, which a lot of things to say on this. Interesting points and different things. I would push back against the professor there a little bit, but it is this issue that is cropping up in Idaho, and it is an issue that I don't think I don't have a great answer for how to solve it. You see many different areas in the valley taking different approaches. I know Emmett has just said, hey, we're not going to limit housing, but we're just going to limit the size of how each lot has to be, and also trying to generate tax revenue for each one, or kind of a fund to then help with the infrastructure that's needed for all those new houses. You see other areas where Boise, with the current, we'll see if she still is after next week, Lauren McLean trying to go for more apartments. You see that in Meridian everywhere, where there's just apartments everywhere. And then you kind of see Nampa and Caldwell, I feel like, playing this sideline game where they're watching all these players. They're watching Boise and Emmett and Meridian and Eagle do their things and trying to choose and figure out, well, what's best for us, because we don't want to do what CUNA did, where they, hiked prices so high that like the development down there, barely anyone moves there, and economic growth just kind of stagnated. So it's this weird dichotomy right now.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I don't know. My knee-jerk reaction is when you start talking increasing tax revenue by creating housing. So the question that comes to my mind is, all right, so how are we increasing tax revenue? Is it from property taxes? Because I kind of firmly disagree with property taxes. And I realize kind of firmly is not, doesn't really make sense, but I firmly disagree with property taxes.
You haven't planted your flag on the issue.
I have. It just, I don't know.
Fair enough.
Right. It's the whole thing. No, I bought it. It's mine. I own it. You shouldn't be able to repossess it from me just because I'm not paying you some money every once in a while. No, I'm not renting land from the government. I bought it. I own it. It's mine. Get off my lawn.
I mean, that's the problem I have with HOAs, but I can also see the argument being like, hey, you're a resident of the community, and if you're part of a resident of that community, then the residency of where you live there is the way that we tie the taxes needed for the upkeep of the services that are in your community.
Well, and at that point, it's not a tax. It's we as the community are going to get together and decide that we are all going to pay for these services to keep our neighborhood looking nice. Cool. If you want to be in an HOA neighborhood, go for it. I hate them.
Agreed.
But that doesn't mean they're inherently bad. But I can opt out of paying for an HOA by not living in an HOA neighborhood. I can't opt out of paying taxes on my land.
I mean, you can move further out of town, where if you're in city limits, your property tax is going to be higher because there's more services that you're pulling on.
Sure. But there's always going to be property taxes. See, so, if you're talking about property taxes, then I would disagree with that as tax revenue. Now, if you're talking about income tax, I might still have a problem with that one, but that one I have less of a problem with. And so if you're taxing someone on the location they work when they're getting paid, okay, I guess. I don't know. So that's my first knee-jerk reaction. After that, I don't really know, man. People need places to live, and there's lots of people moving here. I don't really have a problem with multifamily housing. I know people say that, or you get the impression that multifamily housing brings in lower let's see, lower ladder economic people. I don't know how to phrase that in a way that makes sense. People that make less money because you have less money to spend on housing. But we need all kinds of different levels of economically viable housing for everyone to live in. Like, not all jobs pay $80 to $150 to $300,000, and there are a lot of people living on less than that. So they should have a place to live too.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I will point out that they gave in the article, which, take the good and the bad here. I think it's a good thing that the city council in Nampa trying to thread this needle, which it is a tight needle. It's a needle between trying to make sure that housing prices in Nampa just don't explode because the amount of available market is so slim, so the value skyrockets. But then also trying to be respectful of their constituents who don't want Nampa to become some just complete suburban everywhere type of place. And I think they've done the best first approach to that, which is saying, hey, in the city center closer into town, no one's going to balk about apartments near downtown Nampa in a sense, because there's already bigger buildings. It's downtown. People expect downtown to have the bigger buildings, to have the busier streets. And so trying to put the apartments in there, right, I think makes a lot of sense. Build up that density. You don't have to worry about losing that beautiful farmland or things, right? You've already got maybe some older historical buildings that could be converted into some really pretty nice apartments, right, that add to the overall architecture and the beauty of downtown Nampa. And for people who are like, hey, yeah, I'm living in an apartment, but also like I'm in the heart of downtown Nampa and all the cool services and the quick accessibility that comes with the freeway and stuff. So I think that's a good turn. Granted, like I kind of alluded to earlier, I kind of push back on him talking about, misconceptions. There are some with low-income housing, but when you're talking about low-income housing, you've already predetermined, in a sense, a little bit, the type of people you're going to see ending up there. I'm not saying all people that are low-income are going to be all the same, that, like, you can't judge a book by its cover all the time, right? But that with low-income housing, you're going to be probably having new young people that might not know quite how to live life. They're learning that comes with its own things, right? They're going to have less discretionary income to spend on the place around them. They also don't own the property, so they might not take care of it as well as they might, and all those different things. I'm not saying it's 100% that, but you want to balance the amount of apartments you're putting in with the amount of traditional homes, because average, from what I've read, when you have the average homeowner tenant, that owns a piece of property compared to renting, they take a lot better care of it and overall are better, what's the word I'm looking for? They give more into better steward, but they also give more back to the community. The amount that you see those people being involved in local events and the amount they are investing back into their local city.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know. When you designate housing as low income, you have to build it in such a way that it's cheap. And cheap things tend to be treated cheaply.
Right.
So I get that. I understand. It is a tightrope. Now, as you're talking about inner city, but like metropolitan apartments, chances are good those are going to be pretty pricey, if not so pricey that they're actually more expensive than buying a house in the suburbs. And who knows, that might be a good thing. Now the people in the inner city of Nampa. What's the Nampa inner city?
Downtown Nampa.
Yeah, right. I use the word inner city though, and like that's
it's not like
what we're talking about.
Some
Detroit,
bigger city. Yeah, you're like there's
exactly.
the inner city of the valley. We're not that big.
The inner
yet,
city
John.
of Nampa. It's one block.
I mean, it does
downtown.
have its crime history. I guess it's taking on the role in Caldwell I used to have in the valley.
Yeah, sure, something like that. But yeah, downtown Nampa. If you turn downtown Nampa into kind of the hipster apartment complex, where the people or the young people with the really good jobs want to go live because it's downtown and they can walk everywhere and it's really cool and
right.
Like, cool. Now you're opening up housing for other people in other places. So I don't know. It seems to me like it's kind of a numbers game. need more housing. We need more available units in more places. So
Right.
make it happen, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if I were sitting, and there again, I'm only 21, so what do I know sometimes? But if I were sitting there on the city council and trying to tackle this, my initial thing would be like, okay, keep doing what we're doing with downtown, right? If we're looking at our planning and zoning for downtown, don't make downtown all commercial. Intersperse apartments and houses downtown so people can live downtown, and I think that'll just be good for the overall community in the downtown Nampa area. Also might help with traffic. I don't know, that's a different thing. But also on the flip side, saying cool, but let houses being built on the countryside, but just limit them to lot size, and then as this town grows, then you can revisit if those lot sizes need to be adjusted. That, okay, do we need to rezone these to be this size of house or whatever? Because I think that's just a natural I think some towns, when you see them, especially in the development phase, they start with, it's a small town, and then an explosion of growth happens, and then you have two towns. One sits there and is doing what I think Nampa is doing, which I think is a good thing. They build up the center as much as they can, and then they just kind of build rings out from there, and it kind of slow that heavy urbanization, right, or downtown area slowly spreads from the center. But then you see other towns that they see that and they just instantly explode out into suburban, and all that farmland instantly gets chewed up. And then you have this still kind of ruralish downtown, but then a massive amount of, urban houses. Each one is sitting on, maybe a fourth of an acre type of situation. And then that downtown kind of struggles, and then maybe the downtown needs to grow more housing, and then they're trying to actually demolish all these, homes that around that kind of core bit that are urbanized ones that need to double up, but people don't want to do that. And I feel like that has more issues than just slowly, gradually growing that ring. So there's even some farmland maybe out there in those outer bits.
Yeah.